In today's video, we are going to be talking about the differences between Part 61 as a flight school and Part 141 as a flight school.
I'm Jack. As a kid, I have always wanted to fly through the sky, and I officially started on that journey in 2021. Since then, I have had opportunities to work in and understand the different parts of aviation, fly cross country throughout the United States and into some of the coolest airports, and the privilege to educate, instruct, and teach new pilots how to also fly high. This journey has been nothing but fun, and I hope you too can come along with me. So fasten your seatbelt and enjoy the ride.
How's it going, everybody? My name is Jack. I am a commercial pilot and a certified flight instructor, and today we're going to be talking about really what these two training programs are, kind of their differences between the two, but most importantly, the reason why I wanted to make this video is just because of the advantages that they both have, because each one is very unique, has their own structure, as well as has their own way to actually get you to where you want to go, depending on what you choose, and that's just kind of why I want to make this video today. Alright, so let's get down into it. So, what is Part 61 and Part 141? Well, the FAA has described Part 61 as the foundation for flight training, to where if you wanted to say, get your basic pilot's license and go fly an airplane, Part 61 is the limitations as well as the requirements that you need to have in order to actually get your license. It's all structured in the FAA's FAR-AIM, or the Federal Aviation Regulations, and then the AIM for the Aeronautical Information Manual. These books cover everything you need to know about what the FAA has to say about pilots and training and rules and regulations and so on. You can call it the Bible of aviation. Part 141 now is more or less a newer style of training that the FAA has come out with. Part 141 essentially is a way that the FAA gives authority to flight schools and colleges and universities, the authority to be able to train people on their own in their own unique way, with that oversight knowing that the FAA has approved it. So it's geared more towards like a structure and a flow of like what you're looking for when it comes to, like, say, the classroom environment, or say a structured, tailored environment to a specific setting that you're looking for. That's kind of what 141 goes along with, and it allows flight schools to be able to take control of more or less what they get to teach, as long as the FAA approves it. So some flight schools may be geared towards something more than others, and that's kind of the nice thing about 141, is as long as the syllabus is approved by the FAA, they have free ground to basically tailor it however they want their flight training to be. And so that's kind of the big difference between Part 141 and Part 61. Alright, so now point 2 that I'm going to have here is really what are the differences. The real big difference between Part 61 and 141, and this is just coming from my experience and what I've seen, Part 61 tells you that anyone can become a pilot as long as you do the requirements listed in Part 61. But Part 141 kind of has a little bit of a catch, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. The only thing with it is anyone can become a pilot, but you have to go through that specific syllabus like I said earlier. The FAA has approved them to do things in a certain way. And what that means is any experience outside of that certain area is not allowed. Meaning that, say you flew with your buddy, or you have your own airplane and you're flying on your own, and then you want to go to a Part 140 environment, well, that experience can't count towards the 141 school you're going to, simply because it's not a part of the FAA approval process. So by going to 141, you're acknowledging the fact that whatever experience you have, it won't count towards the license you're going for there, but it will definitely help you out in the long run, because you will still be able to have the skills and the tools already there for you if you go in with more hours than, say, 0. You're just doing the same thing over and over again until, oh my gosh, it finally clicks and it finally gets it. And so that's just kind of really the difference, because Part 61, you're just doing the same thing until you get it, but you're not following a syllabus or a structure, right? All you're doing is looking to see if you can actually get the minimums on the list that the sheet has. And so that's really the biggest thing with 61 versus 141, is 61, you're kind of just going at your own pace however you want to do, and then 141, you have to just follow the syllabus literally per the written words in the page. And if you don't do the words in the page, then you're kind of having to go back and forth into this whole pattern again. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you can get into a hole depending on what happens. Not really any advantages or disadvantages, it's different the way you want to go with it, but now we're going to focus specifically, and this is where I'm going to hit it really hard, is the advantages of both. What are the advantages between the two of them? So this is where it's going to be really, really important to follow through, because this will tell you whether or not this is for you. So the first one we're going to highlight is Part 61. And there's really two things you have to consider with Part 61. And the two things you have to consider is what type of Part 61 system you're going to go to. It's not really mentioned, it's not really talked about, but this is just kind of something that is a thing with Part 61. And there's two different types. There's Part 61 flight schools, and there's Part 61 flight instructors. And so I'll kind of get into the differences with those and the advantages with them as well. But first, we'll hit with Part 61 flight schools. And this by far is just the simplest explanation of it. It's literally your flight school at your local airport. That's all a Part 61 school is. And this is just, a generic flight school. They have airplanes, they have instructors. You get your hours, you get your stuff through them. And then at some point, you get a DP, you get your check ride, boom, you pass. That's Part 61 at its finest right there. And it's great because typically most of these flight schools, you just pay as you go, right? You don't have to pay a flat rate up front. You just have to pay for each flight lesson that you do every single time. And it allows you to just kind of judge based on how far you want to go and how fast you want to go. So they kind of make it to where you can get it done as fast as you can if you wanted to, or you can kind of just take it piece by piece, little by little. And that's the cool thing with Part 61 flight schools is all you have to do is meet the minimums in Part 61 and you're good to go. The only thing that does suck about it, and this is a problem nationwide now, is the DPE shortage is a thing. Sometimes it can be hard to get a check ride scheduled. Sometimes it takes months. I've had students get a check ride within a week only because the DPE was available and the student was ready. And I've had DPEs wait months because they've just been so busy and swamped, or there's just no availability until later on. And we've had to do the same thing over and over again with the flight lessons just to keep them proficient. So check rides wise, DPEs aren't necessarily guaranteed. You're gonna have to figure out a way to get that done with Part 61. And so that's kind of where it's kind of iffy in that respect with Part 61, but at the same time, again, it's pace as you go, and you pay for whenever you want to pay for a lesson. The second one is Part 61 flight instructors, and this is where it can get a little interesting because that's kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm a Part 61 flight instructor, not associated with a flight school. I am just an instructor as myself, and I rent airplanes from what's called a flying club, where you can rent planes to go fly just on your own if you want to do stuff, or if you had students, they pay for the airplane cost and then they pay for you separate. And this is where the advantage of that comes into play, is with Part 61 flight instructors, they have strengths and weaknesses compared to flight schools, right? Every flight school's got their own mantra, but flight instructors specifically, they can kind of tailor how they want to do their flight training. Like for some, they have a training program where they're just all in with it. They can get your license done within a week, and it's doable. It's crazy. I don't know how people can do that, but it's a thing. Other people, flight instructors, they have multiple students, they kind of balance them out and they just kind of spread them out based on how they want to. So it could take months to get a license in that respect for some people. But then again, it's all just kind of tailored to their strengths and their weaknesses and how they want to do it. And the cool thing about that is you can do a lot of stuff with that person if they're willing to go the extra mile. Meaning that if you wanted to get your license done in, say, a week or two, and you knew a guy who could help you out with that, you don't need to go through a flight school. You don't even go through like anyone that's bigger than that flight instructor. All you need is a flight instructor and an airplane, and then boom, you get your stuff done. All you need is a DP at that point, and at that point too, you might as well just figure out what the availability is for all the ones in your local area, and there you go. So that's kind of why Certified Flight Instructors Part 61 is also kind of unique. Is all you got to do is same thing, check the boxes, Part 61, and you're good to go. And now we'll move into Part 141. Now this is where the advantages and the differences really come into play. I didn't say this much up front with the differences because this is something that really divides the two. And the reason why Part 141 exists is simply because of what's called restricted ATP. So essentially the FAA came up with a program where if you wanted to get to the airlines a lot faster, they require people to go to a 4-year college program that has an aviation program, and they're required to get your instrument rating and your commercial certificate through that same school along with a 4-year degree, and your airline hours are then cut by a third. Meaning that if you look in Part 61 for the ATP requirements, it requires 1,500 hours. Well, with restricted, can get there at 1,000. So that's really the biggest difference, as well as the age too. It's 23 for airlines in general, but 21 with the restricted. So it's definitely a big jump if you wanted to do that. But this is where the problem exists, and this is where a lot of people don't realize it until they jump in, and this was a problem for me too, as I did not know this until I got into college. There are two types of Part 141s, and this is very important. There is Part 141s that are college programs, and there are Part 141s that are flight schools, right? That is the key. I'm going to start with the college programs first because that's the reason why Part 141 exists. It is a college program that has a flight program and is approved by the FAA, meaning that they've already gone through the paperwork with them. They've already gotten the process and the meetings done, and the FAA has stamped that they have been approved to do flight training. That is where the restricted benefits come from, is the FAA says, hey, you're certified to do this. That's why Part 141 exists, and it's only in college programs that you can get that. Meaning that if you were to say go to a university and it has a flight program, may not necessarily be approved because they may not have had the meetings yet with the FAA. And that's where you just got to check with them and make sure that they're actually advertising, hey, we have restricted. There's a bunch of schools that do have it, and there are some schools that don't. My school was one of them, and it wasn't a big deal because I got out of it with a nice job. But if you are at a school that doesn't have restricted ATP, you need to get your instrument commercial through them. So if you just got your private and found out you didn't have it, you can leave, go to a different school, and still get the benefits if you got your instrument commercial through the new school you went to, which is nice. Other nice thing about the college programs is with that syllabus being tailored to the specific needs, that syllabus also includes in-house check rides. And what I mean by that is most DPEs, you have to go somewhere, or the DPE comes to you and you do it there. Well, in-house check rides, you don't have to do that holding pattern of figuring, okay, what DPE can do this, what DPE can do that. You get to do a check ride with an instructor or a chief pilot at the flight school, meaning that the FAA has approved your school to actually give check rides within your school, which is amazing. And that saves you a ton of time down the road, because all that means is when you finish your syllabus and you're done with that, someone in the school can then schedule your check ride literally the next day, and then you're all done. So it's super convenient to do a Part 41 for that reason. Now, the only caveat to 141 is it's treated like a college program like every other degree is, meaning that you're gonna pay an insane fee or upfront payment right away as soon as you start. And that's not by accident, it's because you're paying for a lot, right? They're giving you everything you need to pass, and they're doing it in a way that will allow you to finish structured wise and restricted ATP wise. Now, this is where you need to understand the other difference between 141. There are flight schools that have Part 141 as well. And the reason why that's important to know is it goes back to the in-house DPE check ride thing, where FAA people can go into other flight schools that are not associated with colleges and still approve them for a training syllabus to where they can have their chief pilots and flight instructors give check rides. Now, that is also really good if you're looking for a flight school, because if they offer 141 and you're tired of waiting for a check ride, that is a really good option for you, is to go to a flight school that is approved for 141, because it's the same thing. You can get your check ride done there pretty much next day like that, which is awesome. The only thing, and this is what I preach, because this is where 141 can screw you in that respect. If you want the restricted ATP benefits and you go to a Part 141 flight school, you need to make sure they have a college degree associated with it. Because what happens is if you go through a 141 program, get your instrument commercial, but they don't have the FAA approval for the restricted with that 4-year degree, you're no longer eligible to get it. And that's pretty big, because when you're no longer eligible, you have to get to the airlines at 1,500, which isn't a big deal for some people. You can easily make up the extra 500 hours. But for others, that might be life or death, depending on what they're trying to do. So, long story short, if you're looking for a 141 program, make sure 2 things are on that list. 1, that they have a college program associated with it, and 2, that it is FAA approved for restricted ATP benefits. Without those 2 things, you will be stuck in the same loophole that every other Part 61 pilot will be in, and that's you need to chase the 1,500 hour minimum instead of the 1,000 hour minimum. Same thing goes with Part 141 flight schools as with the college program. Could be upfront payments, sometimes it's pay as you go. Typically with it being a syllabus, you're gonna have everything basically right in front of your face. Hey, this is where you're gonna do day 1, day 2, day 3, and so on, meaning that you pay them up front for everything because they're just giving you the rating at that point. And that's the cool thing about 141 is you practically have it in the bag. You just have to go after it and get it done. And if you don't do that, then you just wasted all that money up front just to do nothing with it. So that's the whole thing with Part 61 and Part 141. Both are great options. I am not saying bad things about either of them because there's no right or wrong way to get your license. There honestly isn't. And there's no right or wrong way to get the airlines either, right? You don't have to go to Part 141 to get to the airlines. If you could go to your local flight school, save $1 and get your ratings that way too. And so for Part 61, great way to just pay as you go, right? You know, save some money, pay a little bit, then save more, then pay for more lessons, and then just kind of do it at your own pace. And like I said too, if you know a flight instructor or an individual that's willing to say, hey, let's get this done in a month or a couple of months instead of waiting for a couple of years for you to just figure out what you want to do it, because that's how it should be done. Is if you have a timeline to get all your ratings through, people can do that, and I've seen it firsthand. You just got to find the right CFI or the right flight school, and they will get you done Part 61. Part 141, great program. I did it too. It was fun. I loved it. But make sure if you're doing it for the reasons of restricted, make sure your college has the approval from the FAA. And I would even just not even ask the college professors and the principals of the flight program. I'd go ahead and I would look on the FAA's website. They have something on there that actually will show you all the college programs. And that is where you can actually see the approval for all these flight schools. But you want to find a 141 that has a college program and it has the restricted benefits if you want RATP. But if you don't want restricted and you still want a structured training with in-house DPEs, find a 141 flight school that's approved. There are those out there, they do exist, so I know you can find one if that's what you want. And same thing, it's either pay as you go or something that's up front, and if you like paying up front and getting everything done, boom, that's perfect. If you don't, there's other options out there too. So yeah, that's my video for today. Just kind of my experience with both 61 and 141. There's some videos already about it, but some haven't really talked about the things I've told you. So I just kind of wanted to give you guys that extra step in knowing that, hey, you know, there's options everywhere in what you want to do. And that's just kind of where my stance is on it. There's really no right or wrong way in getting your license and how you're going to do it. You just got to go after it at some point, and how you choose it is up to you. So just some things to remember and to just look for, whether you choose 61 or 141. That's just my 2 cents. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and as of course, if you really like the content I'm posting and seeing, be sure to subscribe. I would hope that you stick around because there's going to be a lot more coming soon. And then finally too, if you want to learn more about me and what I do, I've got a website down below. So other than that, that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for coming and watching, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. See ya.